Hey guys, it's Kay Journey, and today we are going to be exploring a fantasy landscape for like writing stories, short stories, or long stories, or novels, or whatever. Anyway, I had this idea for like a fungal jungle, and I know it's been done before, but I think I've come up with some really cool new ideas. So I kind of wanted to brainstorm them in front of you. Okay, so first things first, what I want to do is I actually want to like draw a diagram of a mushroom just in case, you know, it becomes relevant. Okay, so I penciled that in beforehand. I don't know if you guys can see that. This is basically for the anatomy. So if we're doing a big old fungal jungle, we're going to have lots of different types of these. And they're going to have, you know, different species are going to have different expressions of the same basic needs. Um, okay, so this top part is a cap. And it can have a lot of different shapes and a lot of different things. It can have pores in it. It can have all sorts of different things. But actually, the caps of the mushrooms, if we're dealing with a forest, aren't really going to be the big point of the story because they're going to be above you. So the idea is, if you're in a fungal jungle, the fungus is going to be a lot taller than the person in it. So you got like this little person down here who's like, me, hello, fungal jungle. So if we're dealing with that, this person is seeing this part. So for there, we would see gills or pores or teeth. And we're not talking like hard teeth. We're talking like, bits of flesh that, are poking teeth. Um, and then underground, we would have the mycelium, which is these things. And mycelium layer is actually like, how should I put that? It's like an organism underground that connects mushrooms together. And you can have different species. Okay, let's actually talk. I've got notes here about the mycelium layer. So the mycelium layer, let me see. So you can have compatible um compatible ones, and so it'll be like two different mushrooms, but they're compatible enough to where their mycelium layer will melt together. And then you've got incompatible, so they will shy away from each other so that there'll be like a barrier in between where they, one is over here and one is over here, and they don't touch, and they kind of lean away from each other. And the leaning away from each other is called crown shyness, where basically they do their best not to come into contact with each other because they're not compatible, especially as they mature, as they get bigger and become you know able to release spores and things like that. They're going to shy away from each other. So how I can imagine using this in a story or as a forest would be like this. And I love this idea. This concept like came to me while I was driving, and I had to like take notes in my car. It was really kind of funny. So you've got these like patches of mycelium underground. So this is like a network underground. So they're all connected with a network, and then there's network over here, and there's this big old space in between. Um, and you would have patches that are incompatible with each other because they're just different enough species to where they're competing, not, working together. And I thought about this as like a forest, and these would be the trails while you're walking through the forest. And in order to get through the forest and not wake up these mushrooms, you need to stay on the trail. So, you guys, I don't know if you, well, I don't know. So there's a video game that got turned into a show where zombies were created with like by a fungus. And that's kind of a real thing. There are some fungi, I think in South America, where they infect like a host insect like ants, and they take over and they force the ant to basically bring their spores to other places, and so the ant is moving but dead. Which is a whole other thing that I think is going to add some really cool elements to this story. So maybe like over here you've got uh, bioluminescence. Ooh, and I won't do that. You've got like some bioluminescent ones. And then maybe over here, you've got some that are like, have teeth. And there's a very distinctive barrier between them. But I think the biggest threat to a traveler going through here is not the mushrooms themselves, but the spores that come out. Spores. My dyslexia is showing there. I actually don't know if I have dyslexia or not. I just do random shit like that where I accidentally start in the middle of a word. Okay, so we've got these spores, and they come out of the gills or out of the teeth. Usually, I think sometimes they can puff out of the top. I'm not sure. I think that might, I don't know. There's a lot of different mushrooms. There's a lot of different types, different styles, there's so many different types. There's like, I think there's more types of mushrooms than there are types of animals. That's probably not true, but there's a lot. Okay, so if you're going through this jungle and you've got competing different types, you're going to have spores from all of them floating in the air. And if these are big, massive, fungi that are dropping their spores are going to be probably bigger. So you're going to like be bumping into them while you walk through this forest. You're going to be, they're going to be around you. Maybe some of them are small enough to breathe in. And this is where I think the hazards and like the really cool things come in, because not only do you need to stay off of the path in order to not wake up the mycelium layer that's over here or over here. So maybe if you touch the path, that's what I was getting at with the show. So if you get off the path and you get into one of these sections, you wake up the fungus in that section, and it starts releasing spores. And these spores can do different things in order to, not only spread their genetic material, but also to, protect them. So let's go with down here. Okay, so let's say spores could do different things. Maybe some are like if you inhale them, they plant themselves in you. Maybe some burn on contact. Maybe some attach themselves. Like to the outside of you. I think this is something that like pollen does, where it attaches itself to like bees and things, and they use it elsewhere. But if you were like a human traveling through this and these things attach themselves, how would that work? So maybe they're sticky or invasive. So they have like little tendrils that go into your skin and hold on to you. That would be incredibly painful. Or maybe they sting. So maybe they're trying to get you to stay away from them. So they sting like jellyfish. Let's see. Maybe they act like a drug. So like the psychotropic type of some mushrooms, like their spores would come in and they would you know basically get you really high, and the whole point of some of these is to force you to die so you can decompose so you can feed them, which is I think are really cool. So like a drug or a poison. Um yeah. I think that's really cool. Okay, so what kind of animals or creatures would be able to live in this? So where would I imagine a fungal jungle just showing up? Um, I would think it would be like underground. So I'm thinking that some of the animals that we would have to deal with in here are like insects, the crawling type, crawling and burrowing type. Snakes, again, the burrowing type, or even some that just ended up getting into this underground area. Snakes, lizards, um, maybe some types of rodents that are the burrowing type, and like maybe they got into this underground layer and realized like it was pretty expansive, but it also was a place with very few predators. You know, you're not dealing with hawks in a place like this. You're dealing with, crawling. So, yeah, I could definitely see that being a thing. And I think that, having the spores as the flying predators are pretty awesome. Okay, so if I were going to write this, which I'm actually already excited to write this. Like I love this idea so much. Actually, I have a bazillion notes over here that I took. Um but if I were going to write this, I would start, especially if it was a short story, I would start with them starting out, yay, and going in and encountering these different types of mushrooms and all of the spores kind of like maybe they're running into, this group of spores over here, which is another bioluminescence. So they're dealing with it here and they're like, oh, I'm safe because I'm not dealing with like the burning spores or whatever. And these spores are smaller. And as long as I keep my face covered, they can't affect me. And then, oh no, the burning ones again. And like what lore they would create around this. Why would a human be this far underground to the point where they're in this giant fungal forest? And what happened to them? Did they get shrunk? Did they get, what's going on here? So anyway, I like the idea of this being underground and, having nothing above you, but maybe like some bioluminescent insects. There could be bioluminescent insects. On the ceiling, of the cave above you or something like that. Like, I really like this idea. I would want to ask myself like a couple of questions. So the questions here would be, one, how did they end up in a cavern? Two, why are they crossing? Three, are there any humanoid type living in the fungal jungle? So, and then four, how would they survive? Those would be the main questions that I would ask. It's hard to see up against that. Those would be the main questions that I would ask when developing a story like this. Yeah, anyway, that's what I got for now. I think I'm actually going to use this idea in my next short story brainstorm. I really, really like it. And in fact, I like keep waking up and thinking about it and getting super enthusiastic about it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back next week. Well, I'll be back in a few days for another planner video, and then I will be back next week with a short story. And I think I'm going to use this idea in that short story. So if you are really into this, stay tuned. Anyway, thanks.